This is Andi Purewal for Boxing News. I'm joined by Frank Smith here in Florida. Frank, another fight night comes to an end. Let's just start our way from the top and work down. Richardson Hitchins with a dominant performance against Jose Zepeda.
Yeah, it was a dominant performance. Look, you have to be honest, it wasn't a crowd pleaser, is the reality. He went out there, he won 120, 108 on two cards, 119, 109 on the other. Sometimes fights don't gel quite like you want them to or you thought they would. Zepeda was a real step up for him and a tough test, but I think it needs to be more entertaining if we're going to build him into the where we believe he can get to. He's going to be hard to beat, is the reality with Richardson. He's going to be hard to beat, and he's going to work himself into a position to challenge for a world title. But we need to keep building and keep building the entertainment factor.
You said build the entertainment factor. If you're one of the other leading names in the 140 division, what do you think they make of that tonight? And how much more difficult of a sell is it to try and position him into a fight for one of the titles without it being eliminators and what have you?
Yeah, look, in reality, it is going to be difficult. I think he's going to have to work himself into a position with an eliminator, into a highly ranked position, because it is going to be difficult. Because people are going to look at that and go, "Why am I going to fight him?" That's the truth. In terms of because he can beat them. He can beat them all, but people won't be watching it going, it's going to be an easy night's work for me. So that's got to be the focus, is keep building him up the rankings and get him an opportunity that way.
Poor scorecard seemed to be a theme within boxing. We saw a couple of fights which had them in today. A lot of people felt Sandy Ryan had done more than enough to have a hand raised against Jessica McCasckill. What did you make of the scorecards and the draw?
Yeah, 100%. Look, that 97-93 scorecard was awful. I believe Sandy did more than enough to win, and I'm sure the commission are going to look into it. They should do, because you change people's lives on one night. Sandy Ryan should be the unified world champion tonight. She isn't. We're going to do our best to deliver that rematch. I think it goes the same way, but she gets the result next time. But yeah, real shame to see, and it was a good performance from her. She looked really strong, but yeah, it was a shame to see tonight.
Also, the other scorecard, which was a contentious one, was that in Conor Benn's fight, 96-94, still in his favour, but a lot of people thought that he had won most, if not all, of the rounds tonight.
Yeah, 100%. The other two cards, I think, were 99-91. Again, it's scary, really, because they could turn in these scorecards. It's not far off from being a draw, that one, not good to see. And another thing that needs to be, we've raised it with the commission, but I'm sure they'll look into it. And these things need to be dealt with as they would in any other commission and anywhere else in the world. But look, a great performance from Conor Benn. I actually think that was beneficial going in there in a fight like that, because if he would have gone in there after 18 months out of the ring, had a 60-second knockout job, it would have done nothing for him. He's gone in there, and I think he actually performed very well. He went in there against a strong guy, tough guy, who has never been stopped, probably will never be stopped in his professional career. I think he boxed brilliantly, especially after that long out of the ring. And there's no worth, if we're looking at the kind of fights we're looking at for later this year, you need to set him up for those. And that's the kind of fight that will get him prepared, a tough fight.
The one fight, obviously, that everybody's looking at is the potential bout with Chris Eubank Jr., that one being close towards that 160 marker, would be at 160 rather. Do you feel like Conor's shown that his power does carry through from 147 up to 154? And is it just simply a matter of Rodolfo is just an extremely tough and durable man?
Yeah, look, I think that's what it is. I think he's extremely tough, extremely durable. And I think if Conor would have connected those shots and then 90% of other fighters, they would have had a lot of trouble in there tonight. I think he also realised as well after a while he's not gonna get him out of there. The game plan had to switch up a little bit as well. But I think it was beneficial, and I actually think if you're watching it, you go, he looked good in there tonight. He looked improved. I think he's made a lot of improvements over the last 18 months.
We were just watching some of the rounds on the screen back here, and at times in between rounds he looked kind of a little deflated, or maybe as if he thought like he would have got him out there at certain points. Did you ever sense that from Conor?
I think you got to imagine as well the pressure on him. In terms of the pressure is you got to go out there and deliver, and in his head he wanted a huge highlight reel knockout, and that in his head is what his focus was. So I think at times maybe that's what was frustrating him. But look, I think a real strong performance and just what he needed.
Where do Eubank Jr. talks go from now, or is it a matter of speaking with the board and UCAD first and try and get that resolved?
No, look, we'll carry on. Let's see if anything changes this week, but we'll carry on our discussions with Callis Howland as we have been. It's the natural fight to make, for both guys. If I represented Chris Eubank Jr., I'd be saying the same thing. It's the biggest fight out there. There's nothing that generates the money that this does. And also, you've got to think as well, from Chris Eubank's perspective, he'll look at that tonight and go, right, smaller man coming up after that long out the ring, if in comparison to the other fights he could look at taking, it's a lot more money, and you got to make him favourite in that fight based on size, based on I think with everything that's gone on, and that has to play into the process as well as with any fighter. If he's got a choice to make the most amount of money in a fight that he's probably, like, Conor hasn't been tested really at that level, is the reality. So in his eyes, he's got to be looking at it going, I'll do a job on him and I get paid a fortune. That's the truth.
Just away from this card, get your thoughts on a couple of other topics. Joyce losing with another stoppage victory, but even earlier this time around to Zhang earlier. What did you make of it, Frank?
It was just the same, wasn't it? It was really just went the same way the first fight went. And look, Zhang, tremendous performance, and probably sets himself up in the top 5-6 heavyweights in the world off the back of those two wins. Amazing to see, but it's sad to see as well for Joyce, because he is a nice guy, and I think now's really the time. I know he said, but I think in reality he's probably got to retire off the back of this. Heavyweight boxing's hard work, especially when you fight like Joyce has done over his career, and you have to care about the long-term life of these fighters, and I think now's probably the time at his age as well. It's not like he's 32 years old and can come back and build back up. He'd have to go back into a proper fight. Look, unless the one fight I think they'll look at is maybe Dubois Joyce. Again, it would be an intriguing fight, and the winner comes out of that back into a position to challenge for a big fight. So maybe that's what they'll look at. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he retired now.
I imagine Frank's obviously got an option on Zhang, and will obviously work with him moving forwards. Where does he go from here, and how does he rank in amongst now? How would you rate his chances against other leading heavyweights?
Yeah, look, I said earlier, I think the reality is he's not going to get a world title shot for a while. Especially with talks of, we believe that the IBF should order the mandatory next. They've been saying they would for a while. I'm concerned, though, being honest, that they're not going to do that. Is the reality. It's not right, and we'll have to obviously review our position with Filip Hrgovic. But if they don't do that and the undisputed then happens, then the IBF mandatory, the world title shot's not going to be, like I say, till 12 months roughly, I'd say. In terms of what does he do next, is he going to sit out and wait for? Because I saw an interview with Joyce where he said, I risked my mandatory position to take probably a too risky a fight. So are they going to risk Zhang in a tough fight before his mandatory? I don't know. We'll have to see what happens.
Well, Frankie's getting on a little bit now. You've got to get. Well, you weren't going to London. You've got other adventures, so you're going to miss out on Jordan Thompson, Zepeda next week, I believe.
I think so. Unfortunately, I've got to go and do a sort of 3-country trip next week. So I'm not sure when I'm going to get back yet. But don't miss it. Live on the Zone. Zepeda. Jordan Thompson gets his opportunity, challenge for a world title. See you there.
Well, you won't see me there. Will I see you in Sheffield, Wood Warrington?
I'll be back for that. I will definitely be back in Sheffield.
I will ask you about your tour of different countries there, but obviously travel safe, and I'll see you soon. Thank you for speaking to me.
Cheers, mate. Good to see you.